what was in there?
Yes.
Okay.
It's a man that some people call the king. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Oh.
And, yeah.
In 2016, mansion celebrated its 20 million visitors.
Yep, that's
Don't want to make you guys seem old here. Sorry, Ms. Buttercup. But this was 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm. And Elvis has been dead quite a while, but people still want to go see where he lived.
They get married there and all kinds of fun stuff.
Yeah, like Elvis is a stable guy when it comes to relationships.
Mm-hmm. Again, this is from knoxnews.com by Ryan Willis.
Awesome, thank
I
you,
hope
Ryan
you
Willis.
enjoyed the facts today.
Mm-hmm.
I did. I love you, my Krysta, my Krysta.
I'll think about that one.
Okay, so are we ready to get into the story of the Bell Witch?
The Bell Witch, let's go for it.
Alrighty. So, there's a lot with the Bell Witch that varies from version to version of who you hear it from and how you hear it, but it's a pretty unique tale in that at the time, a general, Andrew Jackson, heard about the Bell Witch, and he happened to be close with some troops, and so he's like, let's go check out the Bell Farm. And, like, yeah, there aren't stories of, well, you know, that a very young Bill Clinton decided to go and check out the Myrtles plantation or something like that, you know. It just... So it's a unique story from that perspective. You know, you don't hear about... And while it may have happened and there may be history buffs who know about it, I have never heard of, like, oh, I don't know, either of the Roosevelts, you know, encountering a ghost before they were president, you know, things like that. So let's tell the story of the Bell Witch as best we can. It begins with a farmer named John Bell. He was from North Carolina, and he and his wife and his children settled in northern Robertson County, Tennessee in 1804. Now, in 1804, America really had only been a country for not even 30 years.
Yeah, it was pretty new.
Their farm consisted of 320 acres of rich farmland that laid along the Red River, which flows through, or which parts of it flow through Tennessee. They lived a quite peaceful life there for the first 13 years. They were members of the Red River Baptist Church, where John became a deacon, and the family became somewhat prosperous. Now, in the late summer of 1817, something that had happened that would change their lives forever. They began to see strange-looking animals on their property. At first, John saw a dog, but it didn't look right, so he thought it was a wolf or a coyote or something. Took a shot at it. He said he had it dead to rights. He absolutely missed the shot, and it scampered off. And then one night, his son saw this huge bird sitting on a post and took a shot at it, and of course, the bird flew away. Then they began to hear strange sounds at night. It started with knocking on doors and knockings on the outer walls. And then they started hearing sounds inside the house. Sounds of a rat gnawing on a bedpost, or sounds of chains being dragged through the house, stones being dropped on the wooden floors, and then gulping and choking sounds.
Oh, boy.
The family was terrified, but they kept the problem to themselves for over a year. When things became intolerable, John confided in a neighbor, James Johnson. He invited Mr. and Mrs. Johnson to spend the night. After several nights of witnessing these strange things, Mr. Johnson suggested that more people should be told, and a committee was formed and an investigation was started. It was not long before people were coming from miles around to hear and witness this unseen force that was terrorizing their house, right?
Right.
Before long, this force had gained enough strength that it now had a voice. When asked who and what it was, it gave different identities. Just a lot of different answers. It once stated that it was the witch of a neighbor woman named Kate Batts. This is what many people believed, and from then on, this unseen force was called Kate, the Bell's Witch. Now, it seems that Kate had really two reasons for visiting the Bell home. The main one was to kill John Bell. For what reason, no one knows, because Kate never really gave a reason why. The second reason was to stop John's youngest daughter, Betsy, from marrying a certain neighbor boy named Joshua Gardner. Now, over the next few years, Kate tormented the Bell family. And John and his daughter, Betsy, received the worst of the physical abuse. Betsy had her hair pulled. She was pinched, scratched, stuck with pins, and even beaten. John began suffering from spells of swelling of the throat and often had the feeling of a stick being sideways in his throat. Then came the twitching and jerking of his facial muscles. Kate would blast him with curses and hideous threats during these spells. As time went on, John Bell became weaker and weaker. Now, at this point...
Is he dead?
Honey, they're all dead. This took place in the 1800s.
This happened in 1804. This began in 1804. And yes, he's quite dead. Now, at this point, Kate was becoming very well known and drew large crowds of people because, they didn't have cable or the internet, so anything new was fun. So people would go, let's go over to the Bell's house and check out that
witch.
And see the witch. Yes, that's what they would do. They'd go to the Bells to check out the witch, which they couldn't see, but they could sure hear. And she was kind of mouthy. She seemed to be very intelligent in many things. The Bible, people's past and future. She could be in two places at the same time, those places miles apart from each other. Kate finally accomplished her mission for coming to the Bell farm. On December 20th, 1820, John Bell had died. It was believed he was poisoned by Kate, and Kate took full credit for his death. And then in March of 1821... young Betsy broke off her engagement with Joshua Gardner, the boy that the witch didn't like.
1821?
Yep.
Go ahead.
Okay. Well, you said it like you knew something.
Because it was 200 years ago.
Oh, yes, 200 years ago. Exactly. Now, Here are some things, okay, that I feel like we have to cover, because that's really just a skim. And there is so much that went on at that time and things that happened. Like, at one point, a man in England heard about it, right? Or a man from England. He wasn't in England at the time, but he heard about the farm. So he went to Tennessee, right, to check it out. And so he goes to the Bell farm, and the witch begins to talk in his parents' voices. Mm-hmm. And it's relaying how they're worried about their son. So he makes it, he leaves. He can't take it anymore. He goes home. Well, it turns out they were hearing him talk, and that's why they were worried about their son. And so he wound up sending a letter back to the Bells apologizing for his skepticism of the Bell Witch.
Wow.
In another instance, it would quote sermons that were being done at the time miles away, and nobody knew it until notes were compared later on.
Right. Yeah, because it's not like you could pick up a cell phone back then.
Exactly. So, a lot of people want to say that Kate is a ghost. I tend to think she really more fits the classic definition of a poltergeist. She's able to affect the world around her, really to a great degree. And if she is to be believed, when John Bell died, okay, they found a small vial half full of like greenish liquid. And they gave a little to the cat, and the cat keeled over dead almost immediately.
What happened to kill the damn cat?
I don't know.
Who thought that was a good idea? Hey, this is an interesting liquid. Let's give it to the cat and see what happens. That's just wrong.
I don't know. Maybe that's what you did back in the 1800s. I don't know. You see, when the barometric pressure drops to a certain point, why would I have any idea? Anyway, but after the cat kicked off,
Right.
Kate's voice was heard to say, I gave some of that to old John last night. It surely did for him, by which he meant it killed him.
Honestly, life is too short to be doing anything like being upset about how you look or how other people think of you.
Well, but the Bell Witch wasn't concerned with how she looked or what other people thought of her. She was originally just concerned with killing John Bell and getting Betsy Bell not to marry this Joshua Gardner kid, for which nobody is sure why. But she did not like him at all. Like I said, and she responded to questions. She would answer questions, and she was real smart. Like, especially when it came to scripture, things like that. And so a lot of people came to see her.
I didn't even see her right because she was... Not even see her right because she was not visible, but they could hear her. It so more came to experience.
Right. But it was something that they could do.
Right.
I mean, it's why religion was more popular in those days, because it was a chance to get together with people. I mean, Otherwise, there really wasn't much to do for entertainment. There was drinking and talking and reading, and that was really it.
Well, I'm working, actually, because they would do big things like barn raisings and that kind of thing. There was an excuse to get together and community and...
Yes, but I'm just saying there wasn't as much fun to be had. Let's put it that way.
Right.
Now, the spirit did show kindness to one person, and that was Lucy Bell, John's wife. In fact, at one point, it referred to her as the most perfect woman to walk the earth. And, like, Lucy would get fresh fruit from out of nowhere, or she'd hear this voice singing hymns to her. And she showed Lucy's son, and of course John's son too, a measure of respect. But she always referred to John Bell Sr. as Old Jack. Now,
You know why she referred to him as Jack?
back in the day, it was not uncommon to refer to Johns as Jack. It was a common nickname.
Oh.
Now, the witch